Hi everyone, so let's now have a little think about what sort of questions you might face in this year's Paper 2 Essays paper. Remember, with this paper you've got 3 questions to answer out of a possible 6, so this gives you some flexibility of choice. You've got to do 1 from section A, the micro, 1 from section B, plus 1 other where you can choose and decide that one. There'll be 6 essays there for you to choose from. So let's take a look at what I've highlighted by going back through previous past papers. Okay, so there's a chance because nationalisation, particularly nationalisation of the rail industry, has featured in the papers the last couple of years since Jeremy Corbyn became leader of the Labour Party, that there could potentially be a question in there on that. Last time this featured on the essays paper was 2011, so a little while ago, but obviously it's something which isn't as big a theme as some other areas that you've studied on the course. Secondly, business aims, objectives. This hasn't featured for a little bit of time there either. And I do think there's a fair chance of actually getting a question on these sort of lines, okay, focusing in on whether profit maximisation is the right objective, is that what's pursued by all firms all of the time, or do they actually pursue other objectives? Okay, so you may certainly want to actually revise that area, and I'd suggest you do that quite thoroughly because I think there's a fair chance that. Likewise, oligopoly. Oligopoly's one's come up previously, but that was a few years ago now, so there's a chance there could be an oligopoly based question again in relation to the business economic side of things. Then labour economics. Right, we haven't seen a labour economics question I think for the last 2 years, so it almost seems like we're overdue one now. Yeah, it could well be about the living wage, it could be about national minimum wage, it could be focusing on trade unions, or it could simply be looking at differentials or weaknesses with MRP theory. Something along those lines could come up. If it doesn't, then I'm almost expecting an elasticity based question. Elasticity is a wonderful theme for essays. My students certainly do very well on that, yeah, fingers crossed that may come up. Likewise, a question on market failure and demerit goods. So market failure has featured every single year so far since the pre-use inception, so it could well feature again. Previously, last year's paper looked at government intervention, whether it's always doomed to fail. Prior to that, it was looking at merit goods, so I think demerit goods are quite likely, and this is very topical of course with the introduction of the sugar tax coming into play next month. Then we've got the macro side of things. So inflation, unemployment, there could be something in relation to the Phillips curve, or it could focus specifically on unemployment as a whole there. So again, that may well be worth really devoting some revision time to. Fiscal policy. This again, yeah, there's a chance this could feature, particularly with fiscal austerity and the relative success of that programme. So once again, we see another area which could feature. Of course, fiscal austerity came up in last year's data response question in paper 1, but you never know. Exchange rates, well, we haven't seen exchange rates for a little bit of time. I think it was about 2013 perhaps off the top of my head where we last saw that. Comparative advantage last time out was 2015, so again we could possibly see something there. And HDI versus say GDP as a pursuit of economic growth, again there's a chance there. And finally, what about globalization? Of course, with Donald Trump and his run for the White House in the run-up to the presidential elections, it was a lot of talk was about globalization. Further to this, there's big differences between the impacts it has on LEDCs and MEDCs. So this is another area I really recommend you spend some time revising, getting to know really well, because it's a great one to write essays on. Okay, so those are my predictions. Let's see how we go.